The PRWeek play-by-play podcast, presented by Allison Worldwide. Allison Worldwide.
Hi, everyone. This is Gideon Fidelzeid, VP of Haymarket Studios and Editorial Director of Custom at PRWeek. Earlier this month, PRWeek debuted Play-by-Play, a weekly email newsletter intended to tap into the buzz around sports as a vehicle for brand communicators and marketers. PRWeek is excited to get in on this game, and another part of that entry is this podcast, being presented to you in partnership with Allison, and thanks so much to them for that. We're calling this episode Keeping Score, and we're going to be diving into some really hot, top-of-mind topics that are not only causing a ton of buzz, but are all full of valuable lessons that communicators and marketers should take to heart. Of course, lessons are only as good as the teacher, the instructor. Well, we have hit a grand slam on that front with my guest today, Shane Arman, SVP and Head of U.S. Sports at Allison. Shane, it's really, really good to be with you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive in, Gideon.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And boy, we get to talk about communications and sports. My God, all we have to talk about is, dogs, and this would be absolutely perfect. But I think we got to go with sports and communications here. So LeBron James, NILs, the WNBA, just three major topics we'll dig into today with Shane. You know what? It's game time, folks. So let's just get right to it. Topic number one. It's always a good place to start with the king. So let's start with LeBron. And I have to make a bit of a personal disclosure here. As a rabid New York Knicks fan, I wasn't exactly a fan of his first decision in 2010 when he told Jim Gray from, I believe, a boys club somewhere that he was taking his talents to South Beach in what was basically a TV special. Of course, that's just a bitter basketball fan talking. Fast forward 15 years later, and King James had the world's attention once again earlier this month in anticipation of the second decision. Some termed it the decision of all decisions. Either way, the buzz was palpable, and it ends up being the launch of an ad campaign with cognac brand Hennessy. Did it go viral? Very much so. Was it well received? Well, corny, cringy, letdown, rug pull. Many reacted with those words, Stephen A. Smith among them. A Laker fan is actually suing LeBron over the announcement. I don't know if that's exactly the reaction you want, but Shane, I'd love to know what you thought about it. Do you think LeBron and or Hennessy have second thoughts about the second decision? Could this notably hurt LeBron's image? Hennessy's, what should communicators learn from this episode?
Yeah, great topic to start, Gideon. And there's so much to unpack here. I think the way in which this was executed, you have it kicking off with this cryptic tease from LeBron, right? Which I think went live on Monday at about noon. And he teased out the fact that this decision would be coming about 24 hours later. And that literally sent the internet into a tizzy. You had Lakers fans going and buying season tickets in anticipation that this announcement could be LeBron announcing the fact that his 23rd season this year is his last season ever. And so wanting to get that last piece of LeBron. So there was a lot of swirl. It created a lot of intrigue, which first of all, I love. And then of course it came out the next day, that it was the Hennessy ad. And, just looking at that initial tease video, I think it's at 82 million views. So you can say what you want about all of the cringe-worthy corniness of the ad, but when Hennessy goes back to measure the results of this campaign, I think that they're going to be pretty darn happy. Now, we'll talk about LeBron in a second. I think that's a little bit of a different story. But at Allison Worldwide, when we think about crafting creative campaigns, we think about ownable, talkable, and valuable, right? And so that's the lens at which we sort of think about an idea coming to life. And I think that this had elements of all of those. Love the idea of a tease, playing into the cultural moment. I mean, yeah, that was 15 years ago. But if you're a sports fan, you remember that like it was yesterday. And so playing on the nostalgia, I think, was key. Also, one other note, that 2010 show was sort of the beginning of this idea of athletes really controlling their own media narrative. So I think it's interesting from that standpoint, too, that now, Hennessy is sort of taking a page back out of that book. But look, at the end of the day, I think nostalgia, cultural relevance, viral energy all worked really well for Hennessy. LeBron, I think, is a little bit of a different story. I don't know, Gideon, what do you think about how it impacts LeBron?
I got to be honest with you. I think that one thing that I've always marveled with about LeBron is for an athlete with as much scrutiny that is placed on him, as much in the public eye as he has really managed. Look, his biggest misstep really was the decision, if you want to call it a misstep. So if this is his first or second biggest misstep, I think he's doing all right for himself. So honestly, look, it's fair to ask what this does to LeBron's image when Stephen A. Smith, who again, sometimes Stephen A. Smith likes to hear himself talk. God, if he hears me say that, please don't kill me. But yeah, so look, I think LeBron really had a lot of people thinking that this was about retirement. I don't think people were necessarily expecting an ad campaign, which by the way, like you said, Shane, for Hennessy, it's awesome. I think it's great. They got so much buzz out of this. Are people going to buy the cognac? Yeah, we'll probably see that. But I mean, look, I think LeBron honestly will survive this just fine. I really, really do. That's my opinion.
I agree with you. The question that I keep asking myself, though, is if I'm LeBron, why? Like, you're going on this potential swan song and there's a lot of other conversation. Do you really need to do that, though? Like, do you really want to bubble up everything that happened from that decision? Or is he just in a place where he just doesn't really care at this point and he's thinking about his business life after basketball? And this is an example of him just being self-deprecating. So I like it from that standpoint, but I still question that was kind of cringe from a LeBron brand standpoint, but love it for Hennessy.
Yeah, exactly. And, LeBron, being the businessman that he is, probably appreciates what this can do for Hennessy. And he was probably like, yeah, you know what? People might complain a little bit, but you know what? I'll tell you one thing. I think what this is a good example of, and I know a lot of you people out there probably want to hear what Shane has to say, not necessarily what Gideon has to say, but I will say this. One of the things I talk about with a lot of leaders in this industry is the importance of building up your brand equity so that if you make a misstep, you could survive it much better. Part of what I said before, LeBron has built up so much, in my opinion, goodwill, that this will blow over. In my opinion, as we're recording this, I think it was just announced he's going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks with an injury of some sort. By the time he steps on the court again, I think people will totally forget about this and they'll just be talking about whether the Lakers are 10-0, 0-10, or whatever in between. So I think LeBron will survive this just fine. Best decision he ever made? Probably not, but I think he'll just be fine.
I'm with you.
Again, as a Knicks fan, it's enough talk about the Lakers. But we are going to stay on the hardwood, though, but this time move to the WNBA. As we record this, the Las Vegas Aces are 1 game away from a championship. Very recently, one of the league's star players very publicly criticized the league's commissioner. Oh, and with the league's popularity at an all-time high, and I think it's fair to say that, the current collective bargaining agreement actually is set to expire on October 31st. Now, signs are pointing toward a resolution, but until the deal is signed, it's a point of obvious concern. The last thing the league needs right now is a work stoppage. As someone who counsels brands on sports partnerships, Shane, what are your thoughts on the WNBA, how it's grown from a brand partnership perspective from, I believe the first year was 1995 or something around there, maybe 1994 to now? Just what are your general thoughts about the WNBA?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, it's still a league that's in its early phases. I think, as you mentioned, it's only been 25 or 30 years since this league has been around. You look at some of the other major professional sports leagues, they've been around for over 100 years. So you have to sort of put that into context when you think about any of these questions, right? But the WNBA, there is no doubt they are on a growth trajectory, and they have been for a number of years. I mean, 11 years, $2.2 billion media rights deal. That's evidence that people are paying attention. And yes, people do watch women's sports. I think the interesting thing about a league like the WNBA is when you come in as a partner, I think there's just a little bit more flexibility and creativity that you can have. You don't have these legacy, the history and lineage of a league to deal with. I feel like the league is a little bit more flexible in some of the things you can do, and that provides more of an opportunity for brands to enter into the space. And we've seen that with some of the clients that we've advised who've actually entered into the WNBA sponsorship space and have really taken advantage of some of that conversation. Now, that being said, with growth comes change, and with change comes fractures in breakdowns in communication. We've seen a lot of turmoil in the WNBA this season that is concerning for a sponsor who is trying to get their brand out there and riding the coattails of a league, right? The WNBA has had a lot of conversation around referee issues. I mean, the commissioner stuff is crazy. I mean, the fact that Nafisa Collier had the bravery to sit up there in her end of season press conference and make that statement. I mean, that is huge. I mean, I have never, ever seen a player talk directly to a commissioner like that. And honestly, I think Kathy is probably out. I think she's probably out within the next 12 months, especially as this new collective bargaining agreement comes to bear. But also in the bigger context of things, you have the pay gap, right? the players have been asking to be paid what they deserve to be paid. And I think they should be paid more. But you also have to remember the WNBA lost $40 million last year. Okay. Their revenues are nowhere near where the NBA's revenues are. So you have to, again, put that into context and understand that there's going to be a step-by-step approach here. Should they be paid more? Absolutely. But the WNBA's got to figure out some of these issues. I think they need a fresh voice at the helm to lead them into this next generation of growth. And that will only bring in more brand partners and provide more opportunities for companies looking to ride the wave.
No, thanks for that, Shane. But the other thing I will say, though, is that it's hard for me not to have this conversation about the WNBA without mentioning Unrivaled. And I think a league like that actually bodes very, very well for the future of the league and the sport, because you know what? It just goes to show there's an appetite for the sport outside of the league calendar. A lot of the players in the WNBA are playing in Unrivaled. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. I have to admit, a former PRWeek Student of the Year is actually running communications for Unrivaled, Tish Carmona. She will be absolutely thrilled to know that I mentioned her name, but I do it every time I get a chance to because she's wonderful. And Unrivaled's really cool, actually. It's like, it's really, really good basketball. And obviously, I do think right now the league probably has a star that they can build around, unlike anyone that they've had over the first 30 years. No offense to anyone, but Caitlin Clark is a different breed, I believe, in terms of her broader popularity. So I think some very, very exciting times ahead for the WNBA. Terrific partnership opportunities for leagues because, again, WNBA is representative of women's sports in general, and we all know that those are absolutely booming. So a lot of exciting times ahead. Now, hopefully, they can bridge that gap, that $40 million gap soon. But solve this collective bargaining agreement, guys, first, because without any games, there's not much to sell, is there?
Absolutely.
I hope that gets resolved pretty soon because the one thing I will say also is that you can always look in history to see how leagues have survived after work stoppages. I would dare to say that perhaps Major League Baseball, maybe the NHL, when they've had work stoppages, it probably took them a while to get back to where they really were before them. There's, everyone involved is probably best served if this collective bargaining agreement really does get solved and the contract gets, the deal gets done before October 31st. But, we will see. Now, topic number 3. Not that long ago, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, you and I, Shane, when it came to leagues, the menu was not very extensive. Now, today, you have new leagues emerging all the time with some serious backing, both in star power and money. Some brands might think the benefit is better to get in on the ground floor with a new league and bank on that potential than it is to partner with more established entities that have been around for a century or longer. So when you counsel clients, Shane, where do these emerging entities enter the conversation? How do you advise clients to gauge these emerging leagues as partners?
Yeah, great question. And we've done tons of work in the space. In fact, we just won a new client in the emerging space. We helped launch Bay FC, the first professional women's soccer team in the Bay Area. So a lot of experience, but we always start with data. And at Allison, our secret sauce is seeing around corners. So it's not just about the data. So to be informed, I think you actually have to synthesize that data, extract the insights, and then bring it to life creatively. And as part of the work we do seeing around corners, we partnered with our fellow Stagwell agency, the Harris Poll, to launch the Sports Momentum Index. And basically, this is an in-depth consumer poll measuring where fan momentum in sports is right now. So it looks at both emerging sports and leagues and the more historical leagues. And so if you look at engagement, personal relevance, and cultural currency, you mentioned Unrivaled. They've been near the top of the Sports Momentum Index for quite a while. League One Volleyball is another one that's been near the top. And then TGL, at Tomorrow Golf League, the indoor golf league founded by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. So, we start with the data and look at where the opportunity is based on the brand to really help bring forth recommendations that fit. But at the end of the day, I think if you look at the ones I mentioned, League One Volleyball, Unrivaled, as you mentioned, and TGL, they all have a lot in common. And I think there's a reason they've seen some early successes. They've changed the model. They've changed the ownership model. They've changed the way that they pay players. They've changed the actual format. Like, nobody's played golf like TGL has played golf on an indoor simulator, but it's worked. They've all got some good broadcast deals coming in. So the momentum is building. And I think for brands looking who maybe don't have the huge P&G budgets of the world, these are really great opportunities in the upstart, the first 3 to 5 years of a league, to sort of test and learn, right? Like, let's start small. Let's do something interesting. Maybe we actually start with a player endorsement deal, and we bring in a couple players and storytell around that and see how it resonates. And then you think about the bigger partnership. So I think that's where we like to start clients, but data is always the undercurrent for all of that.
Oh, that's excellent, Shane. And yeah, I do remember PRWeek and Allison worked together on a video at Cannes around seeing around corners that wasn't about sports per se, but this whole seeing around corners thing and this ode to data. I very much appreciate that. We're going to go to something that I'm calling a 2-minute drill now. So basically, Shane, if it's okay with you, I'm going to give you a couple of things, a little more rapid fire. Just going to say a couple of words and just sort of have your thoughts about them. And guys out there, I think some of these words will be very interesting to you. So this is going to be a lot of fun. But we're going to start with and I am, okay, as I think everyone out there has finally realized, I am a pretty big sports fan, obviously, as Shane is as well. And on the college basketball front, I root for St. John's University. No, I did not go to St. John's. I'm a New Yorker, though. I went to a Division III school. Don't care about them. I'm not naming it because I don't want to say it. So I root for St. John's. And Rick Pitino, I think, is very, very much benefiting from this whole NIL era, I think. Let's put it that way. St. John's might win a national championship. Wouldn't that be nice? But seriously, Shane, my first word for you, rapid fire, NIL. Thoughts?
I mean, college sports amateurism is completely evaporated. Let's call a spade a spade. I mean, this is professional sports. There is an incredible amount of money pouring into college athletics. There are new structures in place. You have the College Sports Commission. You have NIL Go. Early returns are that they're not really working. But if I'm a brand, I'm looking at the friction and the stress that athletes are feeling, and not just the 2% who earn over $1 million in NIL deals, but the 98%, the left behind athletes who may not even have the chance to play sports at a college level if the trajectory keeps on going in this in this direction, right? So that for me as a brand, I would look at those as opportunities, but there's so much to unpack. There's so much news. You got, potential legislation, which I think honestly is probably going to happen in 2026 if the government can ever get back up and going. But there's just so many different storylines. We're advising many clients in this space right now. We've done tons of work in the NIL space, and I'm just really excited about the opportunities, but also there are some risks. So you got to be very careful, and you have to know the parties and know what you're doing.
Okay, guys, I think I have to say we are recording this on Friday, October 10th. The government is still shut down right now. Hopefully by the time, by the time this comes out, I really hope it's back up and running.
I hope so too.
So I want to make sure Shane didn't look like, what is he talking about? The government is back open. No, but today, as we're talking, it's not. Shane, of all the things I wanted to talk to you about, this might be the thing I'm most excited to hear your thoughts on, because it is a word that I have been hearing from everybody. I think I'm the only person on the planet who has not played yet, but pickleball. Thoughts?
I mean, it's been on a rocket ship of growth. I mean, you had a 45% increase in 2024. And from a participation sports standpoint, it is second to none, right? Like, people are picking it up right and left. You have courts popping up in local communities everywhere. In terms of the professionalization of it, I don't see as much commercial opportunity for brands to sort of partner at the league level or with athletes. But certainly, I think the ecosystem around pickleball has also exploded. So you're seeing entertainment venues pop up like the Pickler. And I think that that's been a huge growth area. The retail side of things is also, there's also a whole ecosystem growing there. So, can it continue that trajectory? I don't know. This year, it's predicted to sort of be on like a 15% growth. I think that's going to start to shrink. Honestly, I think that pickleball is probably going to start to fade out of the cultural lexicon over the next couple of years. I think it's almost hit its peak, and that's just how I view it.
Okay. I'm going to go away from single words now and maybe have a little bit more questions for you. Now, this is also an interesting topic. Do you feel politics should enter the sports arena?
I think so much of culture is driven by politics, and sports having moved so much closer to the center of culture than ever before over the last couple of years. I think it's just naturally, it's inevitably going to come up, right? And whether they should or not, really, I think depends on a lot of different things: context, situation, topic, format, delivery, all those things. But I think we see this question being debated most is with professional athletes. Mm-hmm. So thinking about it from that lens, it's really tough, right? If you're an A-list athlete, you sort of have an impossible choice, like speak out and risk being alienated by half of the population, or don't speak up and be seen as somebody who's just sitting on the sidelines and not fighting for something that somebody else thinks you should be fighting for. So as an avid sports fan, I'm fine with athletes sharing their political beliefs so long as it's done respectfully and in the right context. Don't seek out conflict. make it respectful, and share your own personal experience for that context. I think that's totally fine. Athletes have earned the right to command that attention, and they should have the right to use that to drive meaningful change. And I think you saw some of that happen, a couple of years ago in the WNBA around, Black Lives Matter and the Senate race there and what transpired. Like, that was real change. And that was driven in part by the voice of the WNBA players really speaking out. And so that's just one example, but there is that power that exists. So if athletes want to tap into it, I say go for it.
Excellent. I tend to agree with you on that one as well. I'm going to label this under the radar. And this is basically the question. And guys, this is much more than one word, so I apologize. But whether it's a person, a team, a league, an event, or just a sport, I'd love for you to name one sports entity that might not be top of mind right now, but that you think could get really big really soon.
Yeah, people could argue if this is still under the radar. I think it sort of is, but it's without a doubt flag football. If you look at the trajectory it's been on, obviously 2028, LA, but the NFL is all in, right? Not only from a health and safety standpoint, but from a youth standpoint, that the NFL is pumping millions and millions, if not billions of dollars into this ecosystem because they want to own it, and they will. You saw Tom Brady was announced as the headliner for this new flag football event, televised on Fox, taking place just a couple of months after the Super Bowl. And real NFL players and current NFL coaches are playing and coaching in this event. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that the NFL allowed this to happen, but it's just indicative of when those sorts of events are put on the calendar, something big is about to happen. And it has been happening. There's 1,600 leagues across the U.S. And on the youth level, you have collegiate colleges recognizing varsity flag football teams, even at the high school level. So I think it's only going to enter the lexicon more and more and more. And now is the time for brands, if they haven't been thinking about getting into flag football, they should.
That is advice every one of you out there needs to take to heart. And he's right. In 2028, it's going to be an Olympic sport. Shane, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's women's flag football, or is it both men's and women's in the Olympics? I don't know.
No, it's men's and women's because the NFL owners approved in the spring the ability for NFL players to actually be on the team. So we will see NFL players on Team USA in 28, which is crazy. Okay.
Well, speaking as a Giants fan, I hope Jackson Dart plays because he probably won't take the beating on the field that he subjects himself to in regular games. So I love Jackson Dart. Not that anyone cares out there, but Jackson, please learn to slide. Honestly, it's going to be good for your career. Please slide every once in a while. You're not a linebacker, buddy. For sure. We're up to the final whistle, which is my way of saying this is our last question. Our final topic today is about the state of sports media relations. How is that landscape different now as opposed to, say, 3 to 5 years ago? And how do you see it changing in the next 3 to 5 years?
Great question. I think what's different is that today news and stories travel differently. I think the places and spaces that they originate in, which we sort of call this collective shared ecosystem, they're propelled forward in much different ways. And a lot of the stories are either sprung from or given life to by influencers. So I'll give you an example of this. We recently had a client event over the summer. Got a reporter from The Athletic to come out to the event. He was actually on vacation, so he was not allowed to write a story. But you know what? He put out on his X, formerly Twitter, profile, just a couple of pictures of him being at this event and a couple nuggets that he got from one of the spokespeople that we had there who happened to be a current NFL player. Well, turns out that tweet on its own turned into 4 to 5 to 6 mainstream news stories. And I think that is something that us as brand PR people, as PR practitioners, have to think about influencers as newsmakers as influencers. And I think that has completely shifted and has come into focus here in probably the last 3 to 5 years.
Oh, that's terrific. Shane, honestly, we need to do a second one of these, maybe even a third one, because you're great. And there's so many things I wanted to talk about that we didn't have time to. And I just did notice, and I'm sure all of you people out there, that's why I'm glad this is actually a video, because Bucks in 6. See, Shane's a big Milwaukee sports guy. And as we're recording this, the Cubs and Brewers are tied at 2-2. Now, by the time this comes out, the series will be over. So I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to look more stupid than I already do. But, let's all put up some good vibes for Shane. He's a good guy. And his team deserve to win. I have all the mad respect for Cubs fans, but maybe the Brewers should get this one. I wouldn't mind that. And by the way, I actually went to American Family Field earlier this summer to watch my Mets play there. Nice field, lousy game. Guess who won? But anyway, we could stop with that. And I know our producer, Bill Fitzpatrick, who's doing a wonderful job producing this, is like, Gideon, do you have to get the Mets into every conversation you have to talk about? My God, how much suffering can you subject yourself to?
Hey,
anyway.
That's impressive. I give you credit for that, Gideon. That's very impressive.
You know what? Everyone in this industry, whoever will admit to knowing me, knows two things about me. I'm a huge Mets fan, and I love dogs, and I love PRWeek, and I love Allison. Shane, I'm really, really glad you spent time with me today. This was so much fun. And by the way, I think a lot of people learned a lot today, which is also obviously a terrific benefit of having this conversation. I really do wish we had more time because there was so much else we can get into, but we covered a lot. I can't thank Shane enough for taking time to be with us. I know how busy his schedule is. Of course, I can't thank Allison enough for supporting this. Of course, I can't thank all of you enough, our audience, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm confident you learned a lot too. Allow me to take this opportunity one more time to highlight PRWeek's new weekly email newsletter, Play by Play. You definitely want to check it out. As of this recording, the first one came out a couple days ago. It's really, really great content. Kudos to our editorial team for putting it together. Kudos to all the sponsors for supporting it. I mean, really check it out. I think it's a really, really great piece of work, and we're going to do it every week. So it'll be a lot of fun to keep up with that.
It's great. I can confirm it is great. Allison was part of that first newsletter. And if you're not thinking about Super Bowl and you're a brand or anyone watching this, reach out right now. You have to be having conversations about taking advantage of the Super Bowl in the Bay Area. It's going to be huge. So looking forward to hearing from all of you.
Absolutely. And of course, please keep tuning into all these terrific PRWeek podcasts that we're producing as well. Now, until next time, this is Gideon Fidelzeid wishing you all a great rest of your day.